Hi, so it's Patricia de Kuiper and Brian Clement. I'm going to ask you some questions on raw pregnancy.
Surely.
That are coming up quite a lot on the website, on the community. What comes up a lot is women who get pregnant have been raw vegan for years, and then the first semester they're just not, or the first, what is that called in English? Trimester, sorry. They're just not able to stand raw food suddenly. And do you have something to say that could help them?
Okay, number one, it's not about raw food versus normal, quote, food. It's a process where when hormones change in people. When I was a little boy, we would commonly joke about this, where the mother who is now pregnant wanted weird things, and so the husband had to go out and get it. So it's the taste buds change because your hormones change. Remember, the most beautiful thing in life is to be pregnant. You're actually creating human beings. And your body is your immune system, and it doubles in strength. And so when that happens, it starts to have different biochemical needs.
Mm-hmm.
And best to change the raw food you're eating. Not in the case of most of you listening, you're eating way too many fruits, way too much sugar, what we call recreational raw food.
Okay.
So why your body would reject a lot of that sugar is for that reason. So you may want to go to more solid-based foods, nuts, seeds, grains, beans, things we make out of that, sprouted cookies and dehydrators, and more grounding type of things, because you're now eating for two, creating two, hormonally two, or even more than two. And so that's really what it's about. It's not raw food versus cooked food. It's about change in hormones.
Okay, thank you. And then there's also specifically women who cannot stand to drink anything green juice anymore.
Right.
And I was thinking maybe dilute the green juice.
Yeah, exactly. You dilute it.
Yeah.
If it's a taste thing, you may want to add some stevia in it or something.
Yes.
And that's how it is. Highly condensed things, your immune system is so active and kicking, it's great. The strongest women are, and to me the most beautiful women are, is when you're pregnant.
Of course.
Women glow when they're pregnant.
Yeah. So one woman on the community asked a question. She had a tooth decay.
Yes.
And her dentist said, he wanted to fill it.
Yes.
And she said, what shall I do? And my idea was to say, well, watch out for your vitamins. I'm interested in vitamin D and K2 lately. What would you say to a woman who has a tooth decay?
Well, number one, the majority of times when people are on raw food diets, are eating massive amounts of dried fruit and sugar and unripened fruit, and it pits the teeth. It's acid. If you talk to any legitimate dentist, they're going to tell you the worst sugar of all is dried fruit. It sticks to the tooth and decays it. So get rid of all of that from your diet. Number two, you have to be eating bone-building, mineral-building type of foods. And calcium's not what it is, by the way. You need silica, you need biotin, which is a protein, you need magnesium. When I've studied thousands and thousands of women with sophisticated tests, only 1 out of 125 lack calcium. It's really not a big deficiency. But the 3 I mentioned are deficiencies and have direct connection with bone development and tooth development.
And would you give some foods that would contain a lot of silica?
Silica, it would be an herb. It would be called horsetail.
Oh yeah, horsetail.
And frankly, this is where I would take a supplement, especially if I were pregnant.
Yeah.
Also, the side effect, ladies, is that this helps to eliminate wrinkles and prevents wrinkles too. Biotin is the same, as well as magnesium. And the oil of magnesium rubbed on the body is better than oral consumption.
Okay, great. So what happens quite a lot in the women who are raw pregnant, they haven't been raw before, and now they become pregnant, then they suddenly want the best for their child, and they want to go 100% raw.
Yes.
And then the most frequent concern is about detox.
Yes.
And then on the other hand, the experience is that the detox is not such a big problem. But what is your experience with that?
Well, it's really a silly question, because if you ask the question appropriately, you'd say, should I keep the toxins in to give to my baby?
Exactly.
Or should I let the toxins out? So unless you were a heroin addict or some ridiculous thing like that, the toxins will slowly but surely come out. And if you do this sensibly, not go on some crash fast when you're pregnant, but you're eating like the Hippocrates living food diet, it won't all come out at once. It won't be a tidal wave coming out. It's a slow but sure dispensing of waste matter.
Thank you. So I have had questions about, is it healthy to eat raw mushrooms while pregnant? A woman was concerned about that.
Yes, certain kinds of mushrooms are terrific for you. Some of the wild mushrooms are great for you, but you have to be cautious.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
As well as, maitake, shiitake mushrooms, and these are all boosting the immune system, so perfectly fine.
Okay, great. Well, also a frequent question is about calorie intake. They're concerned, should I have extra calories, or should I just watch if I'm hungry or not?
Well, number one, you need extra energy. I hate to use the word calorie because, it brings to mind a lot of bad things. You look at the calorie charts, white bread basically has less calories than a banana. Now, which would you want to have for a baby inside of your body?
Real food.
So the point is, you do need more food. Any sane person who doesn't have anorexia or bulimia or some disorder is going to just naturally want to eat more. And the kind of things you need to depend upon are sprouted grains and sprouted beans that you make into preparations. Out of the beans, you may want to sprout them, mush them together, put in onions, garlic, make burgers out of them in a dehydrator. Cookies can be made with stevia in a dehydrator out of the grains, and try to eat the high protein grains that have very little carbohydrates in them. Millet, quinoa, teff, amaranth, these are terrific grains for pregnancy because they give both protein and energy to the people.
Okay, great. So, and also some women, they just are hungry all the time. They just want to eat. And what can you say to them? I would say just eat, as long as it's raw and healthy.
You've got to be cautious. I mean, if they're eating a proper raw diet, not high amounts of fruit or high amounts of some of the things we've mentioned, it's not going to hurt them. But most of that eating is emotional eating. Remember, your hormones are raging, your immune system is kicking, everything's just. And yes, you do need more intake of energy. But the fact of the matter is, if you're eating healthy food, it's not that big of a deal. You overeat, as we say.
Yeah.
Most women develop 10 kilos or more when they're pregnant. Some women, including my wife, who's as healthy as can be, every time she developed 19 to 20 kilos. And it went right away, but her body, that's what it required. And she did eat significantly more, but not endless eating. High caloric intake can be from sprout juices, by the way, because sunflower sprouts, as an example, have sunflower oil in them and really afford a lot of energy in them. So these are the things that people do rather than eating solid food constantly. They're taking these very rich juices, not blended, but juices, and then drinking it down.
Okay. So, one normal pregnancy problem is morning sickness and also tiredness. And do you have some thoughts on that may be helpful?
Well, every woman, pregnant or not, every man, every child needs to take B12.
Okay.
And a lot of the pregnancy problems are you're lacking B12, not because you're a raw foodist, because you're a human. Meat eaters and dairy eaters have a higher incidence of B12 deficiency. So we all need that, and certainly when you're pregnant and you're living for 2 at that point. Next, you have to make sure that by taking the B12, your iron counts are good enough. And most iron on the market as a supplement is actually a heavy metal. There are forms, specifically in Europe, out of Switzerland, called Floridex. That's terrific. It's a herbal and vegetable form, and that may not be a bad idea. Now, there's foods like spinach and many of the sprouts that have major amounts of all of this iron inside of it, and you can eat more and more of that. The other thing that you have to know about morning sickness is that the old standard, ginger, and taking it and making juice out of it, there's a lot of different herbs. If you look in your herbal books, and I'm not familiar with all of them here in Europe, that are just calming and take away morning sickness. But basic things like seasonings that we call today, like thyme, actually helps with morning sickness.
Okay.
Basil, as you call it, that helps with morning sickness. Oregano
All
helps
right.
with morning sickness.
Great.
And
That's
the
nice.
oils of these are terrific.
Thank you. Well, this is the last question. Any tips for getting pregnant? Women who
One of the
are
things,
trying to
number one,
get
find
pregnant.
somebody you really love.
Okay.
That makes it easier. If you're hormonally compatible, you're going to have babies more. One of my favorite things that we do at Hippocrates, and we used to have dozens and dozens of pictures of babies from families who couldn't have children until they got on the Hippocrates diet.
Okay.
And so this is really something that enhances the egg counts and the sperm counts in people, dramatically increases libido after you
And
go
could you
through.
summarize the Hippocrates diet?
Hippocrates diet is pretty much a green diet, very little fruit, has very little recreational food, berries and all of that. Dried fruit is really non-existent unless you're an athlete, a competitive athlete. Sprouts are really important. Supplemental algae are important. These are the things over the last 60 years we found to be incredibly helpful in getting people pregnant, keeping people healthy and young, helping to reverse disease, prevent and reverse disease. You know, I flourished on it for 4 decades, raised 4 children, now I have 3 grandchildren. They all live this way. Helped thousands, tens of thousands of families live this way. Watch the results of it. And you've got to watch. There's a lot of happy, good people with right intents, with wrong information out in the raw community, that are not scientists, that are not clinicians, who don't do work, who don't do blood tests, don't follow through. They come up with the latest, greatest thing they can sell you, and that's this year's idea. Next year they have another idea. Not to say there's anything wrong with this, but when you're pregnant and you're becoming a mother, the most important job you'll ever have in your life, it's, to me, extremely essential and important that you really get stable and you find out what does work and why it works, and something that has history and validity behind it, rather than the latest, greatest fun thing.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Nice to be with you.
Yes.